But human activity is pushing the seas to their limits. This doesn't just threaten marine habitats and species, but also our own health. Many of Ireland's wastewater treatment facilities fail to comply with EU standards, with some communities lacking even basic treatment facilities, and so discharge raw sewage directly into the environment. At one of these sites here in Connemara, scientists from NUIG have made a startling discovery: an antibiotic-resistant superbug.
So where is this bacteria, this resistant bacteria, the superbug that some people would call it, where's it coming from?
Well, we did investigate the source of it, and we discovered that it comes from raw sewage that's basically stored in a tank just down the beach here. Flows down a pipe, like a kind of a concrete walkway, and it's released untreated into the sea.
The sewage is released straight out into the ocean?
Yeah.
And there's children swimming here all summer long?
Yeah.
That's horrendous. And tell me a little bit then about why you come back to take more samples.
So we've just been monitoring it to see is it continuously here.
Lana, do you get worried when you're taking these samples at all for your own health?
I think so long as you don't swallow any.
Back at the lab in NUIG, Blonit's colleague, Dr. Dervla Morris, has test results from yesterday's sample.
So this is an organism we would have taken from the same location that you in Blonit were. As a comparison, this is an organism that we isolated from a different area.
So this came from the Spittle site that we were at this morning?
Yes.
And these antibiotics are doing nothing, and this is a completely different sample.
You can see there's a zone of clearing around here that tells us that this antibiotic is killing the bacteria on this plate. But as you can see here, it's growing right up to the edge here, so it's not killing the bacteria on this plate.
You can see a huge difference here. I mean, this cloudiness is the bacteria, and this bacteria is just being completely unaffected by this very strong antibiotic.
Which tells us that this organism is a carbapenem-resistant organism.
These kind of antibiotics here are the sort of ones that you basically have to use if almost anything else isn't working.
Absolutely. They're reserved, they're kept back so that you can use them to treat infections caused, in fact, by other antibiotic-resistant organisms.
And now we're seeing resistance to them as well, to our last line antibiotics.
Yes.
And Dervla, what could be the consequences of somebody ingesting this when they're swimming?
If you're a healthy person, probably you will never realise that you've ingested it. If you're a vulnerable person, however, or if you're very young or if you have an underlying illness, the organisms unfortunately can get out of your gut and can get into your bladder and cause a urinary tract infection, or can get into the blood and cause a bloodstream infection. And unfortunately, we found or saw the first report of a death due to an untreatable infection emerge from the US last year. A lady developed a bloodstream infection with an NDM producer, the same organism, and unfortunately all efforts to treat her failed and she died of the bloodstream infection.
So this lady died from the kind of bacteria that we're finding in bathing water in Ireland?
Yes, they are a major problem in hospitals throughout the world. As I said, we've a relatively few number of cases, but unfortunately the number of cases in Ireland are increasing.
So this water that children are swimming all summer long, this is full of human fecal matter with essentially these superbugs inside it?
Unfortunately, yes.
A 2018 EPA report identified 38 sites around the country where raw sewage is directly discharged into the environment. So is this an isolated incident here in Spittle?
So we strongly suspect that it isn't. Under current EU bathing water regulations, there's no requirement to look specifically for antibiotic-resistant E. coli. We happen to do this in Spittle. Through the next project, or the project that has just begun, the EPA-funded ARREST project, we will be looking at bathing waters in other parts of the country, and we strongly suspect where there's raw sewage being emitted to those recreational waters, we're highly likely to find similar things.
And why is this allowed?
It's not allowed, it's not ideal. Irish Water are fully aware of this and are working on introducing a wastewater treatment plant in the area, and I understand it should be in place by 2020.
We shouldn't need the findings of a superbug to emphasise what should be common sense. It's not a good idea to be pumping raw sewage into recreational waters where people are swimming. I hope these water treatment plants can be put in place without delay.